Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going pretty great. I'm at Gamescom,
Yeah,
which is crazy.
I know.
It's a big, long flight from Irvine to here.
Oh, yeah, with lots of jet lag, too.
Yes, lots of jet lag. I'm definitely with you on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, chat.
Junkertown, man.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I can't really do the, Junkertown. No, it doesn't work for me. But, yeah, it's pretty exciting.
I noticed that in the first section of the map, it's a lot more wide open in comparison to a lot of the other maps in Overwatch so far. It was pretty refreshing, honestly, to sit there. It's like first time I load up a map and I just see all the different flanks I can go on instead of just being a singular choke point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was, I don't know, I think a lot of people are going to like that change for Junkertown in particular.
Well, it's a nice break from the rest of the map. Like early on, there's not a lot of high ground either. It's pretty limited.
Yeah.
It was in a couple of the first buildings, there's some ledges, but then later on, there's a little bit more,
There's a lot of flanking routes.
Definitely.
Did you guys encounter any, I know Blizzard, you guys tend to make maps over long periods of time internally. Can you say how long Junkertown start to finish is taken? Because it looks like a very detailed map with lots of different flanks. The art on it is amazing.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. I'm not sure exactly when we started it, so I can take it to the process. Or early on, we figuring out hey, what's the next map we're going to work on?
Yeah,
and it's kind of a crazy thing because there's so many different places we could make maps. We want to do. It's because Overwatch is set in the future, on Earth. There's all these great locations that people that we want to do, that players suggested. Different fans from all around the world are we want a map, and we're trying to figure that all out. But with Junkertown, it was really hey, we need to tell some. We really want to delve into Junkrat and Roadhog. So, first we figured that out. Then, I want to adjust this mic. And then really the sort of process is, okay, it's going to be an escort map. That's what we wanted to make another escort map because I think with this one we have 4 of each of them now.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Then one of our level designers just starts sort of blocking it all out with gray boxes. There's no art whatsoever. It's just strictly all gameplay. And
you guys sort of oh, yeah, just 1 sec. Sweet. I guess I got to play the game.
The little background noise,
Yeah.
See, now that we're talking, they might actually have a chance now.
Oh, man. But yeah, I noticed, I guess when you guys really start developing a map, early on in the process, it's sort of just placeholders for everything before you lock down, okay, we want a choke point here, a flank here, and then you start developing all the art later.
Yeah, it's definitely a process. Like I said, all the stuff you're looking at now, imagine it was all just literally gray walls.
Yeah.
Right? And like I said, we knew early on, there was the idea that hey, we will make it pretty open, but then figuring out it's oh, we do need some high ground here. And it's the first little bit of high ground, it wasn't deep enough, so you couldn't really play effectively up there.
Yeah.
So it was oh, and we put this connector you're walking on, just really sort of build it out pretty organically. And that happens with playtests. So super early on, the map isn't even fully done. We started playtesting just this first area, right? And again, that's where we're adding little flanking routes, taking away some because I think at one point you could go all the way around to the left.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I noticed there was this fence here.
Yes, right. At one point, that fence wasn't there.
Yeah,
and
that makes a lot of sense.
It's it's all right. That's too crazy.
Yeah.
So just working through with the playtest, figuring out where you can defend from, where the flanking routes are, going section by section.
Yeah.
Continue playtest. And then that point when we really feel hey, we've got this solid foundation of gameplay, that's when, well, I guess one step our writer works with our artists, sort of try to figure out what the full story behind this map, because we don't want to set the artists loose without feeding them as much inspiration as possible.
You want to like ground them in the universe.
Yeah.
As best as possible.
Yeah, or it's not just like grounding them, actually like sort of just giving them a nice springboard for their own creativity.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and then as the artifice, you know, areas, a lot of it's like, hey, what are we going to put in this room? And like, well, what is this room? Like for, you know, in like reality.
Yeah.
You know, they're like filling it out with, it's like, hey, what if they had like set up a little karaoke bar, or I don't know if that's actually a karaoke, it's whatever they're doing here, right? You know, and then because we got, you know, work towards like making the various props, you know, this little bar scene, you know, just like, again, sort of filling out like the story, like figuring out the names for all this stuff. You know, it's a really like awesome organic process between like, you know, level designers, our, you know, our writer, you know, Michael Chu, all the like level artists, the artists that work on the props. I mean, a lot of different people work on it, but like, it's kind of funny because like I haven't even like for this like map in particular, like I hadn't actually seen like the final like Junkertown until like pretty like the very like with everything, right?
Yeah.
You know, because stuff comes like, you know, because to be honest, like we were already like play testing other, you know, other maps, so yeah, but yeah, the results really speak for themselves. They did an awesome job with it.
I think a lot of people are going to. This is going to be an amazing map for a lot of people.
I mean, it's got
very unique compared to a lot of the other maps.
Which is definitely something we've been trying to do. I mean, it's escort, but like how you fight throughout it should feel a little bit different. You know, again, it's easy to understand. Like, all right, get on the payload.
Follow it to the end.
No, really, get on the payload, people. And then like, you know, work your way through. But then like, as you like really start to work to master the map, you figure out, all right, this is how I can move around. This is where this is the high ground I have access to. You know, this is where we should attack from. All the little like sort of nuances of the map that you figure out, and that's where we want things to be different on a map to map, so they're just not quite the same.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense. So, is there anything in particular about this map that you guys encountered, like maybe you had issues with early on in design-wise? Just sort of like I know Volskaya had some like good stories from interviews that Blizzard has had previously. Are there any good stories for this map particularly?
Well, again, like sort of like early on, like in this very first area, like figuring out like where we were going to put the high ground, and we knew it was going to be, you know, it is like way open, especially like right before the checkpoint. It's pretty open, and figuring out like at one point it didn't have much cover at all because a lot of the props weren't there. So that last area was like a huge killing field. So we had some really crazy fights on it, and figuring out like the right amount of cover was kind of cool. And then like later on, you know, there's the big rotating sort of spinny.
Oh yeah,
like
it's a spinning platform up there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to work on. And then that section also has like one of the craziest sort of like team flanks. Because like they're right before that like last spin around, there's a like little tunnel like underneath that you can come up to, and it's a really vicious flank. And like I said, we had a lot of like really good, you know, team fights during play tests.
I did notice that this entire bend, there's essentially you have the rotating platform up here. The payload follows a U shape all the way to the end.
But then there's
the
this.
underpass. It's like an underpass that cuts across, and there's this sort of backway flank as well through the outside, as well as that goes up top with the little rotating platform. So there's gonna be a lot of crazy team fights.
I mean, all those paths are large enough that you could actually have good-sized fights in it. You know, not just one-on-ones, but actually like, you know, fit a couple tanks through there. And
like a Reinhardt shield, not just a one player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I always feel bad like picking on these guys as hard as I do. But so I do have a question. This is from chat earlier. So people were asking about like core balance philosophies of Overwatch.
Sure.
I guess is there any particular like balancing philosophies that I know Jeff did a very, very long post at one point on the forums about it, which was super in depth. But that was just a question from the chat. If you have any sort of insight on balancing in Overwatch,
Sure.
it's very complex. So
Yeah, well, there's a couple like philosophies. Like one of the like sort of big ones is, well, the heroes. Any of the heroes, when we talk about balance on those, it's like we want them all to feel powerful. You know, maybe not necessarily all the time, but they all like have their niche where like, as a player, you feel like, hey, I can make a big impact. I can really like help my team out in a pretty meaningful way. So I mean, it's kind of thing of like, if everybody is overpowered, then everything is balanced.
yeah,
You know, like that's one of the things we actually try to like achieve. I mean, another thing is also just sort of making sure that like the character is just fun to play.
yeah,
And like a character being really strong and you killing everyone because it's overpowered is like there's fun to that, but like, you know, again, it's just sort of like the actual like the feel of the character. Like, is that character really sort of playing up to the fantasy? You know, that comes into the design and the balance of the character as well. And then really like after that, it's like we really want to like, you know, make sure that the characters, like I said, again, they feel strong. You know.
yeah.
And that's something where I feel like
become like really easy during balancing just to like nerf and then.
Well, I mean, because like they're getting played, you know. I think that's something where, you know, we learned a little bit from like Arisa,
Yeah.
you know, where it was like I don't think she quite hit the like power mark that we really wanted, you know, with her. You know, people were like looking at her like going, "Oh, the head was too big," you know,
Oh, yeah.
like you know, there's like various like things. I think once you actually start playing, you know, these heroes and like, you know, especially new heroes and, you know, in a competitive setting, you start to see a lot of like what really comes out. And yeah, there's going to be some, you know, there's Arisa changes coming as well, I think, in the next
yeah,
patch.
I think her shield becomes a bit bigger.
Yeah,
I think her shots are slightly faster,
yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
exactly.
Speaking of buffs, Junkrat, man, you excited?
He's really good now. He's really good. That was crazy. The first time we had a playtest where Jeff Goodman, who's our like sort of like lead hero designer, sits right next to me. He was like, "All right, we're putting this like I'm putting up a playtest. I put in a bunch of crazy stuff." And we're like, "Okay," like, and he like gives a list of one of the things, and one of them was basically it's like, "Hey, you can double mine." And I was like, "Oh boy."
Oh, yeah.
And Jeff's also a very good Junkrat player, so it was just like this crazy, crazy play test where like both sides had a Junkrat. There's just explosions everywhere, and I was like, okay, forgetting numbers for a second and like how much like damage it does. It's like again, it captures the essence of Junkrat, which is
Blowing
the more
things up.
explosions, the better.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
You know, so that's really sort of like one of the big things. You know, again, sort of getting to like balance or whatever. It's like figuring out fun definitely is a big part of it. Right. What's, you know, being true to the character. You know, I think we can. It's very easy for us to potentially like balance the character in a way that takes away from its identity and like, you know, how players perceive it. So
On a personal level, I felt that a lot with Diva. From how she was first implemented in beta to now, she became a lot more reliant on just defense matrix instead of the overall character.
She definitely came in much more of like a team-focused, defensive, you know, stopping a lot of, you know, offense.
And then Jeff Goodman did post about that on the forums.
Yes, he
recently as
did.
well.
So I could talk about it. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So now, yeah, he's basically you're not going to be able to use the defense field as much. It like depletes it, like sort of. It depletes twice as fast, which means you can use it half as much.
Yeah.
Math, folks. And we have this completely new ability called micro missiles, which is actually pretty cool. And that sort of again, like, it sort of gets sent back to this thing. It's like we built a mech and we didn't put rockets on it. That feels wrong, folks. You know, it's like,
kind of funny.
you know, it's like, okay, let's, you know, because we were like saying, it's like, hey, if we're gonna like nerf, you know, defense field, like, what we felt like we had an opportunity to add another ability that would make Diva cooler. Boon. You really see it's added a lot to her. We'll see in terms of like balance, like is she maybe a little bit too offensive now?
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, I'm sure with like big changes like that, there's going to be like a pretty lengthy like tweaking process where you go, oh, maybe this is a little bit too powerful. Like
Yeah. But I tell you, when like you fire the missiles, it feels awesome. Like she can fly, and like fire, like she can turn on the missiles and they start launching, and she can fly while doing it. You know, it's just it feels great.
It probably feels a lot smoother to play too, because when I first started playing D.Va, I felt like it was strange that I could fly at somebody, but I couldn't shoot at the same time. But I just kind of got used to it. But now that's different too on PTR. So
yeah.
Speaking
so again, sort of looking back and saying like not just like, oh, is this character too powerful? Is it like getting chosen a lot because of a particular meta or whatever? It's like really taking a look at like all these characters and saying like, hey, what can we do to make these things, strangely enough, in a lot of cases, to change its numbers, right?
Yeah. So there's another question from chat about I guess the hero release cycle of Overwatch. I guess can you guys talk or could you talk a little bit about I guess heroes typically came out, I want to say probably about 3 to 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Is there any plans on increasing that, or is it sort of just a creativity thing where you're like, well, this is a great idea, let's put it in, and you don't really follow a set schedule?
I mean, certainly we want like some kind of regular cadence. Like I think if it felt like if the next hero came out next month, but then there was a 5-month wait for the hero after that, that'd feel a little bit awkward. So there's still a little bit of trying to like, we do that with a lot of things. It's like maps come out every so often. Again, not quite completely regular, but like close to it, like sort of pace.
Yeah.
Heroes, we're pretty happy with the pace right now. That might change in the future. We'll see. I mean, certainly it's not an issue of like running out of ideas.
Oh yeah.
We've got plenty. And we know there's things like, we've listened to a lot of feedback in terms of like, players saying it's like, hey, like Overwatch could really use another healer, there's stuff like that,
It could.
It could. So we'll see.
Speaking of healers, honestly, I'm pretty excited to see the new type of healer meta, I guess, once the new PTR changes go in, because I really do feel like currently Ana and Pro Play at least gets a little bit underused for Zenyatta because of how powerful Defense Matrix was. It was just hard to heal your teammates. And
you're back.
Got saved. That's the other one though. Mercy and Junkrat. I'm excited to see the duo come back. I mean, you got the classic Mercy Pharah, but Mercy Junkrat
also pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially because with the double mine, he's a little bit more airborne than he used to be.
Oh, that's an understatement, man. 2 mines, he's going to be flying.
Yeah, he does.
So I guess I do have a question regarding Doomfist abilities. I think on PTR, you guys did just recently tweak his hitbox, I think, on his right click.
Yeah.
I guess it's more of something personal to me. I found that Doomfist is like a strange character where it feels like I play pretty defensive for the most part, and I sort of just play off of punch cooldowns, where I just punch in, I burst everything, and I uppercut and leap back.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of people, there's like a part of me that wants to say like one-shot mechanics like that almost feel kind of lame that it's on such a short cooldown, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just like...
Sure, yeah. The one thing we definitely wanted to do with them is like at least specifically about the punch, you do hear it charging up.
Yeah.
The one-shot part of it is only when like he pins you to a wall.
Yeah.
So there is some like sort of counterplay in terms of like maneuvering around him. I think the more people play with him, the more they'll understand a lot of like the counters to him. In terms of like what can disrupt him, because like if he gets CC'd, he's kind of in really bad shape.
Especially by Sombra.
Yes.
He's just a sitting duck.
Hack totally messed. I mean, if you take away his abilities and leave him with a gun, like the gun's not amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something
like
to do in between.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
Like everything else. But like, you're playing against Orisa, like Halt can literally just like pull him out of a move.
Yeah, then he's screwed.
And then it's like he's, locked in there for a little bit and then drops, and he's a pretty big character. I mean, that's one thing about like Doomfist. So like you can actually like if you can hold him down for
he's
like
much easier to kill than Tracer, for example.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you can hold him down at all for any length of time, you could pretty quickly focus him and take him out.
Yeah.
So Junkrat Mine, Orisa, probably missing a bunch of others. Like again, knocking him back. Select Lucio Boop. Farrah Concussive Rocket. So I think there'll be some adjustment from the community as they learn how to actually sort of fight against him.
Mm-hmm.
And the way these things naturally sort of happening is the community figures out what to do with the character first, and then like later on, like the counters come afterwards.
It's easier to do it than to counter it usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least to figure it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, the probably the strangest part about fighting Doomfist wasn't necessarily getting one shot or playing around that. It was actually just how displaced you are all the time, because there's not many characters who move you around nearly as much as Doomfist does. Like every single ability, it either knocks you up or pushes you around. And it takes some time actually to get used to that in comparison to other characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar kind of thing with Genji.
Yeah.
It's like it takes some time to understand like how Genji moves around, with the double jumps and everything else.
Yeah, but in Doomfist's case, it's almost like I'm fighting a Lucio, like all the time in terms of like, Lucio, he boops you, knocks you around. Doomfist always is knocking you around with all of his abilities too.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
Yeah. But I mean, something you mentioned like how you're playing around, the charge.
Yeah.
And then using the other ones to disengage. I think something we learned as we were play testing ourselves is that like you can use all the abilities like at once and do like a lot of like crazy stuff, but it does leave you super vulnerable. It's sort of that, do you go all in with all your stuff?
Yeah.
Or do you actually hold something back in case you need to like get out?
That's the cool thing about his ultimate is that it allows you to go all in and then you're instantly in the air.
Yeah.
So it's really good synergy with that.
Cool.
I actually really enjoy his ultimate design, like a lot, because you get to like choose. You get to see, because currently it's not like people have really figured out, what's the best way to play Doomfist or anything.
Yeah.
And so in pro play, a lot of the time what we see is exactly what you said is, like they'll go all in with all the cooldowns, and then they'll use Orbital Strike just to get out.
Sure.
Or maybe not get out, but reset the cooldowns, then they land, and then so on and so on. And it's cool to see, you can have a lot of options with that type of ultimate compared to like something like, I guess Genji's ultimate. It's like I'm always just I see somebody, I pull it out, and I'm going to slash at him,
Sure. Yeah. But with the Genji ult, it's like, all about like getting all those resets and the dashes and
see if I can get another game.
Another game. You can get a game around here, I think.
I think so.
I think so.
Think there's enough people?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Man. Tomorrow's going to be packed in here.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, today is kind of a chill day. But the next few days after that, when it really opens up to the public, I mean, I think you were telling me like last year there were 380,000 people here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, over the process of the convention. And that's a big number.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. People are here to, play a lot of awesome games. I don't know, chat. It's it's hard to understand like just how big this convention is. It's like
I didn't really think it was that big.
It's like it's not just like one building. It's in Cologne Messe. What's the sort of area here? It's like an entire complex of these huge buildings. So there's literally like I think 4 or 5 huge buildings worth of games from all the big from all the big publishers here, and then buildings full of merchandise, press, like everything else, and it's starting tomorrow. It's open to the public, right?
It's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be kind of crazy,
especially around here. There's gonna be a long line for Junker.
Yes, there is. There is.
I remember. I think I was talking to Stylus, and he said last year the lines were like 3 hours long.
Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy.
It's a ridiculous amount of people.
And you're here at Ground Zero, just playing.
Just hanging out.
Just hanging out.
Building a turret.
Talking, it's all right.
Playing,
Right outside their spawn.
I'm still waiting on them to connect. But when they get here, they got a surprise.
Yeah. But at least you put it in a spot that's not too bad to kill.
True. So one question that keeps getting spammed is, from start to finish, how long does it take for some of those big balance changes, such as the diva changes, to get like processed? Or I guess
it depends on whether or not. So like for macro missiles, like you basically have to create new effects for it. So that takes a little bit of time. But like it's kind of interesting because a lot of those cases, I mean, it will be thinking about it for a while, you know, and like sort of figuring out exactly what to do, and then we'll like just go and act on it. And a lot of that stuff, it can actually, in some cases, happen faster than you think. You know, it's literally like, hey, let's try this. Let's do a bunch of play tests. And that could, like, sort of, we could figure out, yeah, we're going to do this, or is this a good direction, or is it something like, all right, this isn't really going to work? And that could happen within, like, a week.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it's like, there's some things, again, we know it's like within a day. It's like the first play test. It's like, yes, this is a good idea. We need to do this. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know.
That makes sense.
And then it's just a matter of like dealing with, you know, sometimes when we change abilities, have to like go in and change tooltips, you know, change the little, you know, when you hit F1 and like look at the hero's abilities, go change some of that stuff. Or it's just sort of dealing with that change. And for some of the things, yeah, it requires a bit more art. In that case, it takes a little bit more time. But I mean, they can work pretty fast.
Yeah, especially when it's like, you know, some of the changes are just numbers, and some of them, like, for example, 2 Junkrat mines, right? Like, I just pick Junkrat. That's pretty easy to throw in and test and instantly push out because there's not, like, you know, new effects or everything else has to be.
Yeah,
built, so.
I mean, there's some testing to do because of, you know, the way the script changed to make that happen. You know, are there, like, some boundary cases? I mean, we definitely, you know, make sure that, like, want to make sure that nothing really horrible goes wrong with it, you know.
Yeah.
Two mines doesn't turn into like infinite mines accidentally or, you know, due to a bug.
Yeah.
Nothing like that ever happens, folks.
Never.
So again, it's sort of cleaning up all the little things about, you know, those kinds of changes.
Yeah. Speaking of balance changes.
Yeah.
You excited for Roadhog?
Yes, actually. He's going to be sneaky strong, I think.
He is much tankier now.
He is much tankier now, and I think it's definitely one of those things where, like, oh, my goodness. You know, you put the changes down on paper, and they, you know, it's like you try to process them, and you're like, yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, he can move now while he's healing, and it's like, okay, you know, that's like 50% less damage.
It feels really
like,
weird to play at first. You're like, this is wrong.
But then it's like you actually use it, and you're like, I just lived through all that?
Yeah.
And like, Lord, if you actually like, and this is just him being him, but like, if you actually like have healing support, it just feels like he just lives through anything. That's what it feels like at times. In the meantime, like if you're playing the Junkrat, you're gleefully like hooking people and but you know it's
got a lot of mobility now.
It's all of a sudden you got the mobility, and that's because that's one of those things of like being able to move while healing means you take less damage simply because you're able to actually like get around cover faster.
Yeah,
you know, it's like you can put yourself in a position where you're just not taking damage because you're out of line of sight, right? So it's not just about the 50% damage reduction. It goes even deeper than that.
Yeah, because you can actively like walk away.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing of like, whenever we announce PTR changes, there's a lot of like, oh my god, and then it's like, well, just wait, just play it.
Yeah.
And then you'll like actually get be able to understand a bit more of like what's really happening with it. You'll see the entire package.
I feel like Junkrat in particular has received some more of those than people think. Like a lot of people didn't really think, you know, the Junkrat self-damage change would really be significant. But then as you play Junkrat, you're like, wow, I'm not really scared of that Winston anymore. I just sit and run out of space, or you know, I can tire and not have to.
That was one of those changes where you talk about like how long it takes to like play test something. It was like, hey, I'm gonna like try this, and like pretty much so everyone like designing the playtest was like, that just makes sense. Why would he care about his own explosives? It's Junkrat. It's Junkrat. It's just do that. We'll worry about the balance later. this is just cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it has a lot of like really subtle effects. You know, you can really get a whole lot, way more up in their face than you used to be able to.
Just like that.
Yeah, like that, folks. Just like that.
Man, I'm running out of questions. You're good.
Chat will supply.
They'll supply.
Chat will not let you down.
Never. They'll never let me down. Here they come. Should Farah also not get hurt by her rockets? I mean, how often does Farah really get hit by her own rockets, though? I guess is a real question. But
I mean, sometimes like a character will fly right into you, and you'll be like, oh, I guess that rocket, you're way closer than I expected you. Sometimes happens with D.Va, but not too much.
So I guess
Ooh.
you're just flying around everywhere. It really doesn't feel like it's just you always have a mine is how it feels like playing the new Junkrat. You can always jump somewhere and finish them off with another mine and get out. And it feels amazing. I guess another question that keeps getting spammed is Mercy's reliance on.
Oh. But yeah, we're definitely looking at Mercy. Mercy's definitely getting some like very interesting and sweet changes.
I'm excited.
And we'll be able to talk about it later on.
TM?
Soon TM.
Got it. I just like made my week. Thank you.
No problem. That's what I'm here for, folks.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's just like,
Yeah.
It feels like you just have so much more mobility. You can walk away from it. I love New Junkrat. I'll be playing this here all the time. Although I think 2 mines of 120 damage could be pretty crazy, but
I've seen that feedback. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah,
that's an easy thing to change, right?
Yeah, it's just a number, and you can toss that. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's also like possible to like. Again, like we could change like how fast you build up the charges too, if we needed to. There's a lot of different like possibilities there.
Oh my god, that game.
Yeah.
It's a little bit ridiculous. It's fun though, and it's in a good way.
You make a lot of heroes look ridiculous, to be honest, though.
He's complimenting me.
It happens. It
feels good, man. Okay, he was like, he didn't know he was gonna rest.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite character?
So I play a lot of different characters, but like a lot of times, like when I'm really super tryharding, competitive or whatever, I go to like Zenyatta a lot.
It's a good choice.
So, he's really. I mean, all the supports are pretty good at this point. I'll play Lucio and Mercy, and my Ana's That's one of the things. Like, definitely when I play Ana, like I have to get in a groove with her, to really get the, sleep dart. Something you have to like.
You have to really practice that timing because the wind up, her pulling it out takes a while. I never play Ana. I'm terrible.
But Zenyatta, it's like I feel like I've got like pretty good timing with the, charge up attacks. Trying to get like picks with that.
Yeah.
He's really good. And it's been great to see like, but a lot of lately because he's been in the meta. Like a lot of really really good pro players. Really,
there's some crazy ones.
There's some crazy ones. I know, like
Boombox. Oh man,
Boombox is the truth.
There's too many good Zenyatas.
Yeah.
You can just go down a list and it's just like, whew.
Yeah.
The funny part about like pro Zenyatta players is how good they are with right clicks.
Yeah.
Like you don't expect it because like in solo queue or just general ranks play, you don't really notice it that much. It's just like, oh, like maybe occasionally die to it. Like pro play, you see them charging up like all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's just like. Pro level, it's like I'm not sure if like the Tracer versus the Zenyatta, like it's a way more balanced matchup than you'd think.
It's just like whoever hits the shots.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like Zenyatta orbs to the face really, really hurt, especially with Discord.
Oh yeah. Turns out they can. Yeah, that's for sure. Man, one thing I love about Overwatch maps is how you always it's like references the shorts and the videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like the plans in
Yes.
game. Like
Totally.
it's awesome. So I do have a small question about, I guess, this is more of just general. So there's a lot of things in Overwatch where pro players will like find something, like minor mechanical bugs about a hero. Like I guess you could talk about like ledge dashing back with Genji, if you remember that.
Sure, yeah.
Doomfist has a few of those. They always seem to get fixed pretty fast, but we enjoy them for a while. I guess. What exactly am I asking here is a real question. Because I was going to ask, what's Blizzard's opinion on those sort of things, but then I realized, well, you guys kind of just fix most of them. But
Yeah, well, some of that's.
I guess my question
those
is
kinds
why.
of things are like really on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a question of like, well, just how ridiculous is it? It's like, does it make the game look good? Does it actually feel good to do, or does it feel like it's annoying and like just one of those things you have to do because it's just stronger?
Yeah.
It's so all those kinds of things. There's been like some locations and maps that like Winston's have been able to get to and like perch on that look, or like just we look at it and it's like, I guess you can do that. And usually usually they're just flat out bugs.
Yeah.
Especially that kind of thing, or it's just like a little piece of geometry got like flagged wrong or something like that. So that's just pretty easy. And like it was never intended to do that.
And then there's other ones like the Pharah rocket jump plus shift gives you a lot of extra height, but it kind of makes sense because it's sort of like an old school rocket jump.
Yeah, I mean that's how those work together.
Yeah.
So again, if you sort of, there's not like one hard fast rule about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it just depends upon like what it is, and what you have to do to, what is the nature of that thing you're talking about, like a lot of the animation canceling stuff, like it's definitely like if you're able to do it, it's definitely a point of skill, but should you have to do that kind of thing?
Yeah,
and
like that Reaper change you guys did.
Yeah.
Where
So
you reload when you shift.
because there's plenty of room for skill differentiation in this game.
Yeah.
To like rely on like, can you pull off this like very obtuse or whatever.
Definitely. There is a question from chat. Pro play than they were originally designed.
Not really. Yeah, not radically so.
I think the only one I could think of is maybe Sombra with its,
Oh, we knew.
with like teams were replacing like supports for a little bit, and then
Again, like it was a core part of her to be able to hack health packs and
Yeah.
provide that kind of functionality for her team. So definitely, we knew about that, and it was definitely like part of the thing.
yeah,
If anything, I think I'm glad that like
that's an option.
that is an option. Like you actually do see like Sombra, at high levels of play. Sometimes it's very map dependent because it's like, well, are there like enough big health packs around? In some cases, it's good for the offense on a map. Sometimes it's good for the defense. And that's something we're like sort of like still evaluating. In terms of like, is she too good on a particular map because of a health pack placement? And sometimes the change for that isn't like changing Sombra. It's like, well, let's move the health pack or change it around, something like that.
Some of the health packs for Sombra, like Temple of Anubis, there's like some amazing ones, like the second point on Anubis, the big pack underneath. Definitely makes sense. I guess I do have just a question for myself now that I have you here. Are there ever going to be any plans to add a pure solo queue in ranked?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that one.
Is there ever going to be plans to add a pure solo queue for ranked?
We know it's been requested. We're very hesitant to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think part of the time when people say it's like, hey, we want solo queue, I think a lot of I think there's also sort of this idea that like, hey, we could also get like a full team queue as well. And it's kind of interesting because like when we originally envisioned what competitive play online would be, we sort of did think of it more as like a full team exercise. But it's just really tricky because it's very easy to find a large number of players that like are queuing solo, you know.
Much harder for a full 6-man.
For a full 6, especially it's like, I mean, you think about like how difficult it is to find like, I mean, I think the Matchmaker does overall a pretty good job. I mean, there's always exceptions, but like, it does even a pretty good job, even like pretty high level, you know, high SR play. I mean, generally speaking, you find, roughly, you know, pretty equivalent matches. The Matchmaker is also trying to do a lot of stuff with terms of like, I think it does a pretty good job of like matching groups against groups.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's another thing where I think if it wasn't doing as good a job as it was, I'd be a little bit more willing to say like, oh, maybe we do need to do a solo queue because we know that the perception of like, you know, if we had a lot of like 6-stacks playing 6 solo players, like we had that, but we don't really. Because like, you know, it definitely does try to find like 6-stacks, matching them with.
Most of the complaints about Matchmaker usually come from like super off-peak times, and there's just not many people playing.
Yeah, so interesting story about that. So we know that like there's some very clever people in Brazil that figured out it's like, hey, if we can 6-stack like at 3 o'clock in the morning in Brazil, where there's not as much population as there is like here in North America, it's really hard to find a match. So we literally stopped making them. Like the Matchmaker has this thing where like
So
it figures
what happens
out.
now?
So the Matchmaker, like, if there's a one of the core features of it is that like it tries to figure out, based on the skill of players, like what the win expectancy for each side is.
Yeah.
Because it's really trying to like what it's trying to do is like get that down to 50-50, right?
Yeah.
And again, it does a pretty good job of that, accepting these like. So something we did, and we've sort of quietly done this, like over the last few months, is like put in restrictions saying it's like, you know what, past a certain percentage, we're just not going to make this match.
So it just doesn't match the blue when they're forever in queue?
If they really try that, yeah.
That's great.
And we've actually been like, quietly reducing that like win percentage like down.
Yeah.
Because we're worried a little bit like we just need to be careful that like it doesn't impact. We know it's going to have some impact on like queue times. And we didn't want to, so we have to be a little bit careful about it. But we've been like slowly, silently reducing that down like over time. And so far, people haven't really noticed, which maybe it's a bad idea that I talk about this now. But anyway, I talk about it.
It's a secret. No,
Yeah, no. Chat, you're with me, right? Yeah.
they're always with us.
Yeah.
I guess the other big complaint about like the rank system in Overwatch is usually it comes from like people trying, like there's a lot of I guess general community complaints about people figuring out like, oh, if I play, this is just community perception, I don't know if it's actually legitimate or not, like, hey, if I play this off meta hero,
Right.
you know, will I get more SR than playing the meta hero because certain SR gains are different based on heroes and all that stuff, and etc.
Right.
I guess.
What are we doing?
True? Is that necessarily true? First off, and if so, now that people are learning about the system, are there any plans to?
Yeah,
change?
I mean, to be honest, a little bit of it is overblown.
That's what I.
There is a little bit of truth to it. So, like, I can't get like I know chat's been. I've been reading you guys chat. You've been asking a whole lot of like, you know, what are we doing with competitive? And unfortunately, I can't really talk right now about like all the stuff we're doing for season 6. Soon, very soon, I'll be able to talk about that a bit more. But we definitely are making some adjustments to try to address that particular issue.
That's exciting.
Right.
That's cool.
So.
Nice.
And again, it'll take a little bit of time. Like, it's one of those things of like making those kinds of adjustments to the matchmaking system. Like, it'll take a little bit of time, and there might be some kinks, but we're definitely like when the next season, we'll see some cool stuff.
Okay, now I'm excited for season 6. Really excited.
We'll see some stuff.
We'll see.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those things of like it'll be a subtle change because I think in a lot of cases it was a bit more overblown.
I think it more of just addressing it kind of automatically gives feedback to like or changes the community perception.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like we're definitely aware of the feedback, and it's something of that. But that's the kind of thing of like we've had like some like there's definitely been like some like anything with the statistics, guys. Like you can really sort of cherry pick and like find like the one case where make it look really bad. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of cases, you know, I've definitely seen like videos from Mercy mains who say like, hey, my win rate's not less than 50%, you know, and like my SR gains aren't crazy at all. But then like, you know, actually Sombra is actually a little bit worse than Mercy in that regard, just because there's so much difference between a really good Sombra and a more average Sombra. I mean, she's actually she's one of the heroes that actually has the highest like sort of like skill gap between the floor and the ceiling.
Yeah, that's definitely
so there's a little bit to it. I think a lot of it's still sort of overblown. Like, we don't give you SR just for playing Sombra. You do have to win games. You know, just think of like, well, do you have to win as many? Maybe not. But again, there's a lot of like unique circumstances to those
lots
kinds
of different
things.
factors.
It's all very complicated, and making these kinds of changes take a little bit of time because we can't just rely on feedback from the players. It's kind of thing of like from looking at that kind of feedback, it like sort of helps us guide. It's like, hey, what do we need to look into? Mm-hmm. But to actually like sort of make the right changes that we think will actually address a problem requires a whole lot of testing, data analysis, looking. Yes, a ridiculous amount of stats. We literally have people that basically all they do is look at that kind of stuff. You know, help us guide us. You know, a lot of like data analysis. Mm-hmm. So it's a very complicated thing, but we are definitely making changes for the better.
Makes sense. Speaking of stats, I've always been a big advocate for more stats in Overwatch. Are there ever any going to be like other plans to implement more stats onto like the scoreboard for Overwatch?
On the scoreboard, there's a lot right now, and like that's kind of thing of like looking now. There's like if you hold up tab again, there's a spot there.
Yeah.
You know, where we could put like something there. Like if someone told me, so like this is exactly what it should be. It would be a great stat. It's like, yeah, I could add that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't bother me at all. Changing the UI so there's a whole lot more stats and like literally flooding your screen with stats. I think that's like the tab screen isn't necessarily the best place for that, but that's something like when we implement match history, which we're working on.
Oh,
we'll get there eventually. I
soon,
think that's a
TM.
Less soon.
Okay, far TM.
But someplace in between. But when we do get to that, I think that's a much better like sort of place to look at a lot more stats. Like, you know, because I think some of that's also like we're working towards providing a lot more stats, not just for players, you know, in match history, but also for esports.
Ooh.
So
that makes me excited.
Yeah. So like something I implemented pretty recently, it's all internal right now, is like I actually added stats so we could track the amount of damage that like every hero does with all its abilities and weapons. So we could like do a damage breakdown in terms of like, oh, let's like compare your Genji to Shadowburn's Genji. Mm-hmm. And there's probably actually differences based upon like, you know, like what do you do most of the damage with your Genji with versus what he does with his Genji.
Like
so like
which targets.
Or which targets, or but like do you use left click more, do you use right click more, you know, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So being able to actually say like, hey, in a typical match, like you do this much damage with the right click versus left click, and stuff that I think is going to be, that's the kind of analysis I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, again, like we're working towards all that, but like for contenders for Overwatch League. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and we definitely want to like be able to provide, like stats are great, but I think stats are like even better when you provide like a lot of great context and story behind them. You know, like being able to say like, hey, Siegel, why are you a good Genji player? Right? And like being able to actually like look at stats and say like, oh, well, he does this particularly well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, for every time you use Dragon Strike, on average you kill this many people. you get this many resets. Like, how fast do you build it? I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
And yes, I need water. Thank you, chat.
Some water right there if you need some.
I am dying.
No, you're not. What the heck? Don't die. I need this one trick problem solved.
We're working on it.
Yes. Thank you.
Delicious water. All right, I'm better now.
Nice.
Thanks, chat.
Feed me more questions, chat. I focused on the game for a second. That's the wrong maneuver.
Now that I'm alive again.
Yeah, he can properly answer questions again. Let's see.
Wow, it's going fast now.
Yeah, it's going way too fast. Oh, that is a good question about SR decay. I guess there's been a general community sentiment, at least that I've seen, where
that it sucks.
Well, SR decay is kind of necessary for like
Yeah.
high rank players, like GM plus. But lots of people are like, I'm Diamond. Why do I have SR decay? Are there going to be like any potential?
Again, I can't talk about Season 6 changes.
Oh, okay.
We are making, but yeah, we're making some adjustments. There's some short-term stuff we're doing, and I think long-term, again, I'm not super happy with it in terms of like a lot of the like negative psychology around it. You know, that the feeling of like, oh,
I have to play this game.
I have to
really
play
want
it.
to.
Yeah. And again, like, it is achieving like an important purpose, and that's something. Like right now, I might change it. Like, there's short-term changes that I would talk about, like maybe later this week. And then there's sort of like some stuff in the medium term. I might also like even loosen up a little bit more. But I think long term, I want to try something. I want to see if there's something that could like a better method of getting to the result.
Yeah,
that's important. Without
not to play the game every day type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, because to be honest, like you should play Overwatch because you're having fun.
Yeah.
In the story. So.
Makes sense. Are there any, I guess, spectating features or improvements that you guys can talk about in terms of esports?
We're doing all kinds of stuff for spectator mode. We're doing a lot of like camera work. We're doing a lot of stuff that stuff with replays. That's another thing that we're working on that too, chat. Because replays are actually like a really cool thing for esports broadcasts. So you can do stuff like being able to like do really cool instant replays and not just do it from like the view that like the player's view, but actually be able to like do an instant replay where we can like move the camera around and
like
get
a full replay where you have full control of any point.
Yeah, or being able to go back and say like, hey, all right, this Tricia made this awesome pulse bomb play. Let's go back in time to like look at that, but then don't just look at it from Tricia's point of view, but like move the camera around so we can actually get like an awesome view and see all the carnage, like perfectly framed. So there's stuff like that. Like we're doing a whole lot of like cleanup in terms of like the sort of spectator UI, making that a much better experience. I mean, we're definitely doing a lot over the next few months. And I think players will be able to see a pretty big set of changes for like BlizzCon and World Cup.
Yeah,
we really sort of set a goal for ourselves to be able to like. We really want to have an awesome experience for you as a spectator. For World Cup, because those are going to be some awesome matches.
They've already been awesome, man.
No, they've been really good so far, yeah. But yeah, no, like the 8 teams that are representing, like they've all done, they're all really good teams. And Korea might not win it.
I wouldn't bet on it.
I said might.
Yeah, true.
Might.
Always a chance.
Always a chance. But no, I think, there's a bunch of good teams, and like I think the meta by the time BlizzCon runs around, the meta will be a little bit different. So there's always some, we'll see how all the teams react to that. But so it'll be really exciting. But I said we're really trying to make the spectator experience pretty awesome. So Yes, we're definitely working on that. And that's all leading up to Overwatch League, which is going to be crazy.
That sounds awesome. I'm honestly been waiting for like spectator features for a long time, and just hearing it come out just for Overwatch League stuff just makes me happy, man.
Yeah, I mean we've known it's been something we were going to have to address.
Yeah.
And I think like the observers and like we've been able to do like a pretty good job with like the broadcast like so far. But there's definitely still stuff we can do.
Makes sense. There's a good question I just read in chat. I just missed it. I'm going to stare at chat and hope he spans it. Oh, that's a nail. Actually just owned me. I hit
Orbs
the aim button.
Orbs to the face. They hurt.
Oh, no.
They hurt.
Will there be a World Cup Lucio Ball?
Oh, wow. I have not heard that suggestion. So we've been pretty happy so far with like competitive Lucio Ball. That was kind of like a very interesting sort of thing for us. It required us, we had to do a bunch of work to, bring a lot of those systems over to Lucio Ball.
Yeah.
I mean, will there be a World Cup? I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of thing if like a bunch of fans wanted to put that together, I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be cool actually.
But I mean, not for a while if we ever do it. But I mean, God, Lucio Ball is fun.
Yeah.
It's crazy like to see like how good players have gotten at it. Like the kind of plays that they're able to make now, like sort of the little like tricks and techniques they use. It's like bouncing the ball, like passes to yourself, bouncing the ball like up high, all the different air shots. It's been really cool.
For a more serious question, this is something I've kind of complained about forever. Are there ever going to be any changes to how the spawn system works in Overwatch with relation to like assault maps? So currently it feels, when I play those maps, like let's say I'm assaulting like Temple of Anubis' second point. It feels like I'm more fighting the spawn system than the team most of the time.
Yeah, we did make a change, or at least we talked about it, and I think they're going live on 114, I think. And this is like, I made a post about it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that like, it's hard to explain in verbally, but basically the idea is like, and there's been a system in place for a while that said like, hey, if you've got more people if you've got more people offensively on an objective than the defense's spawn time slowly ramps up after a certain amount of time. And we essentially we made a change recently that I think is going out 114 or maybe 2 and out before that. That basically takes that time and like we cut it in half.
Yeah.
So we think that's going to have a bit of the impacts because like it's kind of crazy. It's like I think a little bit of stalling is actually sort of exciting. It's like because when you play like the assault maps, it's like there really is sort of emphasis of not just like barely eking out a team fight win, but actually being able to like win it decisively.
Yeah.
Teams are definitely rewarded by that. Like even if they don't, fully take like 100%, they're able to take, huge chunks of it, and that's something that I think a big change. I mean, the big change we made with like the assault maps was just that like now that we're like able to break ties with like percentages that aren't, it's not just all or nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's helped a whole lot, because it's not the issue of like, oh God, we got it to 95%, but that meant just as much as someone who got, was that we like stuffed, right? So, so I think that we'll see how that like spawn change works out.
Does that spawn change happen on all game modes, or is it?
It's actually all game modes and like all objectives. So it's like payloads too.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask, that situation happens pretty commonly at the end of checkpoints on escort maps.
Yeah.
Like for example, Dorado in the courtyard or Gibraltar at the end of the hangar.
Yeah.
Like it's really common for the defenders to stall out in those sections. So
yeah,
if those changes apply also to those,
yes, they do.
situations. Sweet, awesome.
And again, if this doesn't work out, like I said, like finding like, it's a weird thing to say, but like, again, like a little bit of stalling, I think can like add a lot of drama to the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think back in terms of like, you know, the game that Team USA played on Nepal at the World Cup recently, where it looked like, you know, the other team, like I think it was on Shrine, they had it on lockdown, and you know, like Alucio came and like was able to like keep the point going, and then there was like this really awesome Sombra play using a teleport to get on it, and then they came back.
Yeah.
Right. Like those kinds of comebacks are like really, really compelling to see, and like what you don't want to see is the like, okay, God, we've been fighting off this trickle for 3 minutes. Please,
It's like we've
can we
killed 20
stop?
players. Yeah.
It's like that's what we really want to stop. So like finding the right balance there.
You just kind of
that's what we're trying to get.
You
to.
want to like give the defenders a chance, but still not just have it be overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, and not like take forever.
Yeah.
You know? So
I mean, in the good old days of no hero limits, we had what was it, 4 Divas, 2 Lucios. Those were the days.
those are the real stalling days.
People don't know.
Yeah. But we remember.
Oh yeah. Can't forget them.
Can't forget.
I mean, Legend says they're still stalling right now. Let's see. More questions. There's always questions about MMR reset, but I feel like that would just never happen because it just creates like a month-long just of bad games for everyone.
You speak truth. It would be a pretty apocalyptic. I mean, it'd be really bad. It's something where, I mean, if chat remembers, there was a season where we compressed the SR a little bit, I think it was like season 2.
Oh yeah, it was season 2. Everyone
it was
remembers.
season 2. Like we compressed it a little bit. So like, am I actually on camera?
Yes.
Okay, so chat, there's like this like bell curve of like everyone, right? And season 2, like there's like the bell curve of like the entire population, everyone's SR is on it, like the average is like sort of this peak. So imagine I'm making this curve, right? In season 2, we did this, and it was bad. Everyone noticed and was like, why are our matches like so bad? So what the MMR reset is suggesting is like, let's go from this to this. Mm-hmm. And it would be it would be horrible for a while. And if it's kind of thing of like, if you could tell me that like, you know what, we're going to do an MMR reset, and then immediately after, everyone's going to play 50 games.
Then you'd be okay.
That'd be fine, but that's not going to happen, because like, people, they take breaks, they come back.
Come back a month or 2 later.
Right, or just, it would be bad. So, yeah, that's sort of like, that's the big red button of like badness that would cause all kinds of problems.
People still complain about like, oh, you were season 2 of whatever SR, then season 3 you were this. Like, wow, you suck. Like, people still kind of say that at like top 500 because it's just silly.
I don't know. Like at a certain point, it's like people do get better.
I know, but
or they do get worse.
I know, but it's still like people don't actually care. It's more of just to troll something.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably.
For more questions. Someone brought up role selection in matchmaking. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, the deep questions. That one's really that one's difficult. Very difficult to talk about. That's something that we know about all the feedback. There's some things that potentially we could do quietly with the matchmaker that we might look into. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the issues, the kinds of things that I would love to try to address are, I think some of this will help with toxicity, which is I know is sort of a big thing for everyone. Like, hey, if we can prevent situations where multiple people want to play the same character, but then oh, let me play this character or I throw. Okay, so if the matchmaker can try to be smarter about preventing those kinds of situations, that would be a big win.
Yeah.
if we can prevent the sort of situations where no one plays support or tanks, that'd be a big win, right?
It's more of, it sounds like what you're saying is it's easier to do those types of things like slightly, subtly behind the scenes with the matchmaker than have something like big, like, oh, pick your role type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the role queuing is just that, and we've discussed it internally, and it's, I mean, there's been a lot of like really good, people have said like, well, what if you try this, there've been a lot of good ideas out there. It doesn't work necessarily super well with our game as well as it does with other games because
it's so
in
easy
our
to
game,
swap.
well, to make it work, we'd have to prevent you from swapping.
Well, you can't do that. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Well, and like, there's some characters where like their roles are a bit more fluid in terms of like what exactly is Roadhog.
What is May?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we might have to change what the roles even mean. Offense versus defense and so forth. So, again, it's something of, again, we'd like to say, we've been actually like, again, collecting just a tremendous amount of data on this kind of stuff. Like, how often do we have matches with, like multiple Mercy mains? That's one that like people scream about that. And the answer is it's really not as bad as you guys think. If anything, the worst problem is the no support main. There's a lot more matches with that, which I think is just as much of a problem. Because ideally, like I think the quality, like it's good for like reducing toxicity. It's also good for quality of the matches if players are able to more readily play something that they're good at. And the more that they're asked to like, oh, I'm like a really good 76, but someone else is playing it. I'll play Reaper. But if you haven't put in as much time on Reaper, you're just can't be as good, as someone who plays a lot of 76. So again, long term, don't have anything necessarily like in the short term. It's kind of thing. We'll have to do a fair amount of like research again, trying to figure out the right way to do things. There's definitely like queue time implications to all these kinds of things, which is one of the things we have to be careful about. Because I know like you'll hear like sort of the feedback in terms of it's like, oh yeah, if it could be just like like we totally would be willing to like have longer queue times for this feature or this feature or this feature, but there are limits.
Well, I think it kind of depends. So for someone like me who like, okay, let's say I'm a high MMR player, I'm like top 500. If I'm playing at off-peak times, it's like, okay, I'm like rank 20 and there's 4 diamonds on the enemy team because I'm playing at 7 a.m. Right. And I don't know if queue times, so what ends up happening is the players end up feeling frustrated because, oh, my queue popped after, I don't know, it's usually about 6 minutes, I think. It's like, why couldn't it just wait like 15 minutes as the maximum instead?
Again, the thing of like, would you have found a good match after 15 minutes?
Yeah, that's the real question. You guys would know more than the players would because you have the stats. So.
Yeah. So again, and then there's limits. And it's kind of thing of like,
what was that?
I have no idea what that was.
What the hell was that?
That was like some fog cannon going off. So anyway, again, there's sort of limits. Like if every game was like a 15-minute wait, there'd be like people would be asking to shorten the wait times there too. So I mean, it depends. So it's just something we have to be very cognizant of, very careful of. And we need to make sure it's like, if we do something with the matchmaker that does increase match times, that it was worth the change, right? So.
Okay, I do have one, in my opinion, significant suggestion, but it's also very minor.
Okay. Significant but minor. Got it.
Can I have a transparent objective markers? So, or can I turn them off entirely? Because there are areas and lots of maps where the objective marker can cover up enemy players.
We're aware of that. I don't know when we might do something about that, but we know about that issue.
Sweet. Okay. Someday.
Someday. And it's one of those things that it might be sooner, it might be later. It sort of just depends.
Okay.
There's definitely like lots of little things that we would like to tackle like all at once, but we're doing things like adding deathmatch.
That's gonna be so fun. I mean, I remember back probably around release of Overwatch, maybe beta, I think the devs actually said at one point that you guys would probably never add like a serious deathmatch mode. But hey, things change.
Things change.
It's also.
It turns out it's really fun.
Turns out it's very fun. It's awesome. I'm really glad you guys added that because it gives, like, there's always been, I would say, kind of like this missing area where I can just sort of just mess. So I feel like in quick play, it never feels like people are actively really trying that hard. But in ranked, people are often trying their hearts out. And there's been nothing in between. But I feel like deathmatch on a custom server with my friends kind of adds that middle ground. It's like you can try and kill each other, and then, yeah.
Yeah, or you can play as a hero and you don't have to worry about, like,
your team or
your team screaming at you. It's like, why are you playing this character or whatever? I know we've gotten a lot of positive feedback in terms of like players using it to warm up.
Yeah.
You know, or strangely enough, cool down. It's like, you know, if they get a little bit, you know, frustrated.
Maybe
you know,
someone tilted at you in your ranked game.
Yeah.
Stop as DM, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, and like I said, it just ended up being really fun. We made like, and the map that we made for it, like it's awesome.
Yeah.
That came together pretty quickly. So, and I think that it's something that's once players actually get their hands on it, like once, you know, it goes live, we'll really see, like, you know, how much is it, which is more popular, FFA or team, you know, do we support it with like more maps in the future? Do we support it with a competitive mode? You know, who knows?
Competitive deathmatch. It could, yeah. I mean, we got Lucio Ball.
Exactly.
Like,
it's on. You know, it's like nothing is like completely off the table.
This guy's a limit.
Yep. So
we
try to go where the fun is, man.
True. That's truth. Man, I think I'm running out of people to play against now.
No.
Where's everybody at?
I know it is getting a little later in the day.
True. See, any more good questions from chat? Looks like there is a little bit of spam about people asking about like golden weapons and competitive.
Right.
Personally, I never really cared about it too much, but I guess that could be, you know, people are incentivized to play ranks because they want a golden weapon. Are there any plans to like adjust that reward system in any capacity?
Again, I can't talk about Season 6 too much. But in terms of like from a philosophical standpoint, we really don't want to necessarily like add much, add to it. It's kind of thing of like, ideally, like you should be playing competitive because you want to play that. You know, you want to.
You're looking for like a more serious environment.
Exactly. You know, being able to like, you know, working better as a team together. You know, playing a bit more seriously, etc. That's the reason you should really playing competitive, not just for the golden guns.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or if we added anything else, which we're not going to at this point, but yeah. That's one of those things. As a game designer, never say never.
True.
Very important to remember if you ever get into this biz, never say never.
I mean, for me personally, I guess I never really cared about the golden weapons. It was always about like, you know, in top 500, so you have the cool profile picture, and you know you can spray, and it's all cool and animated. Need more animated sprays, man. Can't go too over the top, but I like them.
It's fair enough. Oh, it does make the top 500 ones very special.
Oh yeah, that's true. Don't add more.
Okay.
I want to be special.
So we do add them. They just need to be special.
Yeah.
And it might not be a competitive thing, but I mean, because they're really cool.
Like the it's like beat legendary mode in that game mode. I'm forgetting the name of it off the head. It was the PvE one.
Oh, which one? Like the Uprising one, or
yeah, it was Uprising.
Yeah, okay.
Like beat legendary, maybe you get a cool animated spray, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I could see cool stuff like that. That'd be awesome.
Who knows?
All right, let's see. Any last questions from chat? Looks like there are people asking about, you know, the report system and things like that. I think you guys have kind of publicly addressed, you know, changing the report system recently.
Yeah. Sort of the important takeaway for that is to report people, it does help us identify all these bad people that are doing horrible things, from really bad abusive chat to throwing games, being inactive, all this kind of stuff, cheating, whatever. We're definitely working towards trying to provide more feedback to players. Because I know right now a lot of people think it's it doesn't really mean anything because we don't really provide a whole lot of feedback.
You don't know if it
actually
works.
Yeah, so that's definitely one thing we're trying to address as soon as possible as we can, is providing that kind of feedback, saying it's hey, you reported someone, and that report, helped us, action, a player. Again, trying to give you understand that it's hey, it does work, it does help us. Let people know that what they're doing is not a good thing and they should stop doing it. We're not doing it. I think we don't necessarily want to just get rid of all the players. We want bad players. We want bad players to understand that they're being bad and give them an opportunity to say hey, stop, reform, and be a good member of the community. So that's definitely one of the big things we're doing. I think we're also just sort of really looking at that entire system, trying to be more aggressive about some of the penalties, because we know it's again potentially can we identify people that are throwing not just because they've gotten a bunch of reports, but because we can actually look at the data and say hey, this person is throwing intentionally. He just intentionally threw 10 games, right? So we're definitely trying to invest as much into that as possible because we know it affects everyone's enjoyment of the game. And I think a lot of when people say it's oh, this competitive season's been really bad, a lot of that is because a lot of that's just due to toxic behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of the times people just remember the bad experiences much more than the good ones.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
There are some well-known, well-understood cognitive biases that you definitely remember the negative things much more than the positive or the average, or you misunderstand how often it's happening, and that's fine. We're all human.
Yeah.
That's why we collect a lot of stats and data to really understand. It's okay, again, use the feedback to understand that there's a problem. Use data and to really try to sort of give you a better sense of how properly to address that problem.
Well, two more, I guess, easy topic.
Ooh.
When will I be able to change my skin in pregame before the match starts instead of at the main menu?
I don't honestly know.
I just want to change it there because sometimes I forget, and then you know I forget again. Oh my god!
An excitement cannon just went off, folks.
Oh my god!
See over there.
Jesus. I hope they don't repeat. Oh no.
Anyway, I don't know. I honestly don't know. There's some technical. I don't know all the details, but definitely there's loading considerations.
Yeah.
In terms of loading in all the skins and so forth, but I'm not sure of all those details. But certainly it'd be cool. I will let the appropriate people know.
Yeah. Nice. Good job, chat. Man, what else? Looks like Uncle Swag has a whole bunch of topics, but jeez. Dude, we've covered a lot of topics. You've been a champ, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it is kind of late. That's fine. That's why I'm here.
Seriously, just thank you for answering all these questions so far.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's good to do this kind of stuff. I mean, I know it's you might it's we're not just how to say this. I know sometimes it's not completely obvious that we are reading all the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
That we and the answer is yes, we read Reddit. Yes, we read our forums. Yes, we read both Reddits.
Oh, no.
Right. We're definitely like always looking for player feedback to help guide us towards, improvements to the game and so forth. Some of these things are difficult to discuss, especially like on a forum kind of thing. Because again, like it's just difficult. So, and some of these, when talking about things like the matchmaker and skill rating and all those kinds of things, those are very complicated systems, and just talking about them is just difficult. So, but again, we're trying to make we are there. We are making changes. We're trying out things. Sometimes it doesn't happen as fast as you guys want. It doesn't happen as fast as we want. But we are definitely like always working towards making the game more awesome. So, thanks for playing, guys.
Thanks for making it, man.
No problem.
I think
it keeps me busy.
I think it's kind of. I guess it does keep busy. It gets really easy, I think, for the community to like get kind of heated about stuff, just because they just shows they care.
Yeah, no, that's just passion.
Yeah.
That's like, I'd rather be in a situation where it's like people are bitching at us for like all these things than not saying anything at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I mean, that's just, it's just the way it is. And, we understand that, that kind of, we have to develop thick skins and that kind of stuff. But, but we all know it comes from a place of love.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
The game better.
Most all the time.
Most of them. Let's see. Improve the training room. That's a niche feedback. I've never heard that one.
Oh, no, we heard that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, it's something. So when you say like improve the player room, the training room, I think a lot of it comes down to it's like, hey, is there like a better place that I could really like practice my aim, right? And like some kind of, because I know there's like those kinds of like maps exist in some other like FPSs, and I think it's a great idea, but it's one of those like there are many great ideas out there that it's just a matter of like priorities.
Yeah. I noticed. You don't really notice it as much, but I mean, maybe with deathmatch now added.
Yeah.
I remember it was during a lot of the tournaments last year that I was at. A lot of the Blizzard employees where they were just like, "Wow, I didn't know the training room got used so often for pros." Because a lot of the time, you're about to enter in a tournament, and it's like you want to warm up, but you don't have time for rank game because the tournament can start in a second. You're just sitting on stage, and it's like, okay, time to hop into the training room.
You want to be able to leave whenever you need to.
Yeah. So any improvement in the training room, all the pros will love you for it. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Just saying. I'm aware.
Yeah,
no, I love it too. So I mean, it's again, yeah.
Yeah. I just got warned that we have 5 minutes left. So if chat has any last-minute questions, we got 5 minutes. Hit me. Let's go. Can you ask about a map creator? I guess community-created maps have always been like.
So that is a near and dear subject to a lot of us because, I mean, if you ask a lot of the designers or, at Blizzard, like how we got our start, it's because of the StarCraft map editor or the Warcraft 3 map editor or, making Quake maps way back in the day or Half-Life or TF or whatever it is. So we definitely know we want to get to a place where we'll be able to, hopefully in the future, like provide those tools to players. That time is not anytime soon, to be frank. But it's something that it's always something we're trying to when we make decisions about technology or whatever, we want to try to make sure we don't put ourselves in a situation where we make that impossible.
Yeah.
Because it's something we want to do. Because we know it's like there's a ridiculous amount of creativity out there, and it'd be wonderful to just see the kind of things that the community can make. I mean, the community of Overwatch is just wonderful, in terms of like.
I mean, you guys already kind of gave them some tools with the custom games.
Yeah, but like there's like even more that
Yeah.
we could potentially do. I mean, like, like all those sliders or something. Like I have to add, like a lot of those I have to add by hand.
Yeah.
For a game mode, it's like, hey, like what do we think we might be able to do? Like, and we keep on adding those kinds of like things, and I'll add more in the future. But actually being able to like, give access to how we script game modes, I think is another thing that like would be really cool. But again, we're not really ready for that yet.
Some year in the future, someone's going to come out with some ridiculous PvE campaign, custom map. Someday.
Someday. It might be one of your chat.
I know. It could actually be.
It could actually be.
That's actually amazing. Let's see. Oh, higher tick public server. So I guess we noticed that, at World Cup now, I think the servers are now running at, is it 142 tick?
144 maybe?
Yeah, I think it's either
Something
142, 144.
Yeah.
I forget which.
High.
Yeah, it's very high right now. Are there any plans to add that to the general public?
Not at this time, and a lot of that has to do with like to actually use 100 like those servers. It requires actually like a whole lot of. It requires actually a really good internet connection to like properly use that kind of stuff. I mean, it's something where I think we were able to make the change from like for the server update rate from like 20 to 60, and I think that did a lot. Going even further than that, there's risk for that, and there's definitely some diminishing returns to it.
Yeah.
So, again, without going into all the details about that kind of stuff, so I don't. The answer is probably not anytime soon, but we'll see. Oh my God! One more question. 1 minute.
Let's give him a good 10 seconds to come up with a good question. Let's see.
All right.
Nerf scatter. Don't do it. Don't do it. You didn't read that.
No.
Oh, no. Ooh, map voting. I actually like that. This is actually a more complex question now that I think about it. So, will we ever see maps come in and out of a rotation for competitive play? Because now with the addition of Junkertown, we're going to have a crap ton of maps.
Yeah, it's 16.
It's ridiculous, actually, to think about it. Will there ever be a way you guys have like maps coming in and out each season?
We might.
Okay.
That's kind of thing of like, we'll know we'll have too many when we do actually have too many. And like, but we don't know until we sort of get there.
We're getting there, I feel like.
Yeah, maybe. It's the kind of thing of like, we like the variety as a whole. And we know it's like certainly like, StarCraft is on those kinds of things, other like shooters. So it's something, it's not off the table by any means. It's kind of thing of like, is it something we do after releasing another map, after another 4 maps? I don't know the answer to that, but
because I know from pro player perspective, like practicing and training for that many maps is essentially like nearly impossible.
Yeah, no, totally. Which is why, like in terms of like map pools for like competitions, we definitely don't. We try not to put the entire map pool as something as something that would be played at say like World Cup didn't have all the maps like available for it. So we're definitely cognizant of how hard it is to practice 16 maps. So we'll see.
Okay.
All right.
Oh man, that was a lot of questions you answered.
A lot of questions.
Just seriously.
And I'm glad for the water. Thank you, chat, for keeping me alive.
Just thank you so much for answering them all, man. Hey, man, that's an Overwatch glass bottle, chat. Check it out. I think it's actually available in the store somewhere.
It is actually available in the store.
That's an easy plug.
I ordered one, actually.
They gave me one. I'm just like, I didn't know this was a thing, but I'm
now you have it. Yeah.
Now I am. But
all
seriously,
right.
Thank you so much. Seriously.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, it was good to answer questions in this kind of format. like I said, we'll be doing this a little bit more, hopefully in the future.
Sweet.
I know, like here at Gamescom, but maybe at some other conventions or whatever. So yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, Seagull.
Yeah, man.
And thank
Thanks
you,
so much.
chat.
Yeah. Chat. I ran out of questions in like less than 5 minutes. I'm so glad they stepped up.
They did step up, definitely. There's a lot of pent-up demand
Oh yeah.
that got served there. So thanks, guys.
Anyway.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's escort, but like how you fight throughout it should feel a little bit different. Again, it's easy to understand. Like, all right, get on the payload.
Follow it to the end.
No, really.